Dreams of the Destroyer. I walked through a forest of gnarly trees in the middle of the night. I ducked under branches and squeezed through pockets of thistles like I knew where I was going. It was as if I had no control, actually being steered by something. I thought I was being taken to a familiar spot that I knew of, but I was deposited onto a dark path with alien forms moving around in the darkness in front of me. I hesitated as a disembodied male voice explained that this was the mystery, and I would have to enter it being the darkness. I remembered that I had a keychain flashlight on my keyring and used it to light the way, although it did very little in penetrating the dark. A strange elk creature stood off to the side of the path as I walked by. It was extremely frightening with its large and gnarly antlers and glowing eyes. It did not move as I passed, but pulled away from me into the thistles. Further up was a dark woman dressed in black who had her face hidden from me, possibly by a veil. She was to lead me from here on out. She led me up the path a little ways and up to a dusty shack, indicating that I should open the door. Strangely, I felt like I'd been there before. I proceeded into a spacious central room, which ended at a balcony. I looked over the railing and watched as the floor dropped like an elevator. When it stopped, I looked up at hundreds and hundreds of floors stretching up the side of the building like the inside of a really nice hotel. On each floor, nicely dressed men and women marched on with briefcases and bundles of paper. It was pure chaos, and these office workers were now on my floor, filing past me. Even though the woman had not followed me into the shack, I felt like I was still being led by something, and I didn't think enough to break that control. I followed the railing to a set of rickety stairs, and on the top landing I passed by the same creepy old woman in the veil, who had somehow gotten ahead of me. She indicated another door to me, directly up the last set of stairs, and I pushed through it without thinking. I entered a quiet suburban neighborhood, now in the middle of the day. It must have been Halloween because people were walking by in costumes. The town had a movie set feeling. After I performed a 360-degree turn, the horizon seemed way too close to my eyeline, as if the entire town was built on a platform floating in the air. I followed a marching line of people to a dead stop. The little man standing in line ahead of me turned his head to the side to stare back at me silently. "Your name?" I asked him. The man continued to stare. "Well, you have to have a name." "Fine, I'll give you one. You're Ronnie." "I'm Ronnie," he said. "That's right. I don't expect you to have much to say, so just listen. I need someone to talk to." "Reasonable." I paused at a new sound in the background. Besides the static chatter of the 100 people crowded around us, there was also the obvious sound of music, distant and echoed. "Do you hear that?" The man did not react. "There's a carnival somewhere." "A carnival? What the hell are you talking about? We're in line for a roller coaster, I think. It's called the Goliath." "The Goliath? A roller coaster? Don't you know?" "No, I don't know. I don't know how I got here. I fucking hate roller coasters. They scare the hell out of me." "Why?" "I'm always afraid they'll break down or something." The music started to get louder. It was now clear that a male was singing. There was also drums, guitar. I'm totally hearing something. So? So? You don't find the music a little weird? Where's it coming from? Ronnie shrugged. "What is this town?" I asked him. "This place? The only thing fun around here is the Goliath. This place is run by an evil king. We don't really talk about him much here." "Why would he keep us here?" "He needs us to ride his ride," Ronnie said, "or else this place would be empty. He needs our compliance, our attention, our fear?" I asked. Ronnie shrugged, but ultimately nodded his head. "I don't know if I believe this place is real, or you." "I'm Ronnie." Yes, you're Ronnie, but judging by the music, it's an alarm clock playing somewhere. Every morning I wake up to the radio. This is a dream." Ronnie laughed, and every person in line, back in front, turned to look at me. All chatter had stopped. It was dead silent except for the distant rock and roll music blaring. I looked around uneasily. "Sorry, my mistake." Everyone went back to their business, and the non-stop background noise of voices resumed. "I need to wake up now. I don't know why I haven't woken up." The line moved on. All characters stepped forward in sync like soldiers in profile. "Here, I'll prove to you I'm asleep," I whispered to Ronnie. I turned around and pointed at a tall, gaunt woman holding a purse. "You, do 5 jumping jacks now." The woman dropped her purse and started to move. We watched her complete the 5 jumping jacks. See, I can make any of these people do anything. Do you think you can make me do anything? Ronnie challenged. I pushed past Ronnie and tapped another guy on the shoulder. The person turned around and I gasped. Where have you been? Dad? You can't go around stepping on toes. Discipline, son. I didn't raise you this way. Strangers talk with strangers, running like a chicken with his head cut off. Dad, The line moved again, and my dad stepped away without another word. I stood still, staring into space. Ronnie returned to his rightful place in line. He seems nice. He wasn't. Dead? I really need to wake up. Now! I closed my eyes and grimaced. I stamped my feet and slapped myself in the face. I told you the king won't let you leave, Ronnie said. Not until you ride his ride. You don't know anything. You can't know anything I don't know. You're part of my dream. $5.99 per pound. Offer expires January. Listen to yourself. You're a fucking radio commercial. I'm only trying to help. Help me get out of here. This is a dream, right? I should be able to change my background. I could fly if I wanted to. I'd like to see that. All I care about is waking up. That should be the simplest thing in the world. You hate roller coasters, right? The free fall should shock you enough to get you up. No, I've had this dream before. I never get on the ride. I'm the next one to get into the roller coaster car. I freeze and run away. Sometimes down the track and I'm run over. That's when I wake up. That has to hurt. Maybe this time if I actually ride it. Why do I keep dreaming of roller coasters? Face your fear? Nah, it's more than that. What are roller coasters? Exhilarating, intense, fast, Ronnie listed. That's it. They're brief, so very brief. 12 seconds. Fun, yes. Scary, yes. But fast, no doubt, I said. The line moved again. But you're afraid they'll stall and you'll get stuck, Ronnie interjected. Upside down. Upside down, yes. I like the idea of roller coasters, the ups and downs. Life, sure. But I don't like the idea of interruption, of failure, a thing that dangerous, where so many things go wrong. It's not worth the chase. In fact, it's unnatural. Unnatural? Yes, like this world, like the platform, like this king you keep talking about. The Destroyer. The Destroyer? That's what he calls himself. The roller coaster goes to him every time. Goes right into his mouth. What do you... Ronnie screwed up his face, thinking. The roller coaster track goes right into his mouth, and it never comes back. So you've never ridden this ride before? No, I've never got to the front of the line. What will happen when I get there? You don't know unless you try. That's what my dad always said, that day in line for the Goliath. I freaked out and he tried to convince me that it was safe, that it wouldn't break down. He told me to trust him. But you ran? My dad was so unhappy. I don't know. His word wasn't enough for me. Trust is hard, Ronnie said. But it was my father. If you can't trust your own father, who can you trust? You can trust the Destroyer. The line moved again. And no, he's not dead. You spoke of him as if he was. Screw this. I pushed past him and every person scattered out of line to reveal the roller coaster car at the end. My dad was standing next to it, with one foot inside. I came up next to him. It's safe, I promise you. The track proceeded at a 60-degree incline straight up into the air, into the clouds. Maybe I'll check online to see if there's a video of the roller coaster first, I said, taking out my phone. My dad waited patiently in the roller coaster car, pulling the chest guard down tight across his stomach and watching me expectantly. I began scrolling through pictures on my screen, searching for footage of the Goliath. I paused on one picture of 3 trees standing before a lake. With my fingers on the screen, I zoomed in on the trees. I found that I could actually zoom past and see what was beyond the trees. This was surprising to me, especially because the things in the background were still high resolution, no matter how far I went. I got excited by this and seemed to enter the picture, moving over the lake at an intense speed. I could see the track below me now and knew that I had entered the Goliath. There was no going back, so I held on to the handles on my chest guard. I wanted to see how far into the picture I could really go. As I sped over the top of the lake, I questioned whether I was still in a dream. I seemed to tell myself no. I had been awake only a second ago, and this could only be my sleepy thoughts right before falling asleep. I dismissed the thought, skating over pieces of land and more bodies of water, as if this was a swamp of some kind. Then I moved over the hills in a mountainous region. Down below I watched a man resembling my father step out of the rundown shack I had approached before, looking up at me as I flew away. Then I entered one of the mountains. Zooming through tunnels of stone, it was like a catacomb with many possible paths. I passed one branch that had a white light at the end of it, but it was so long. I continued on and came to the end of my current tunnel. It ended in a hole in the floor. Below me, I could see a cluster of rocks, as if in a desert. I sped down into it at a reckless speed, passing right through wooden obstacles and supports that someone had set up in my way. A voice told me from somewhere that this was the forbidden way. The same male voice from the path, the one who told me about the mystery. I came to the end of the tunnel, into the light, and then looked back. I was now floating in outer space. I had a good view/sense of my body, weightless in this vacuum. The tunnel I had just exited was a plastic-looking tube attached to a larger machine suspended in space. It looked like a space station of some kind, with thousands of these tube-like appendages attached to it from all sides. I became aware that they were all different worlds, and I had just escaped the machine. The destroyer. I knew that this was the farthest extent of my reality, and I was free out there. I drifted further from the machine, but I could not balance myself. I felt topsy-turvy, not knowing what was up or down. There was a kind of ripping discomfort at my center, as if I was being pulled in several different directions. The male voice continued to speak to me. I saw that it was coming from an old-school radio/video screen floating right next to me. It had robotic hands with white cartoonish gloves. I centered myself by taking the robot's hand, steadying my position. The robot's screen told me that I should return to the machine. I hadn't been listening and asked him to explain what he meant. We were drifting back to the tunnel I had just flown out of. I was aware of a greenish/pink light that was emanating from sections of space, right behind and ahead of me, surrounding the machine like a halo. The robot explained that I should respect the machine. Everything could be destroyed, but not the destroyer. I stopped before the top of the tube I had just come out of, ridged and painted hot pink. I crouched there and held on. I processed what the robot had told me. The voice prodded me to proceed back into the tunnel. Instead, I caught sight of another tube, open at the base of the machine, and releasing cascades of water into the void in sequence streams like a waterfall. Same commanding radio voice screamed at me to stop as I attached the end of the water hose to the tube I had exited, filling the machine with water, creating a feedback loop to short the system and free all those lost souls in that Halloween town, slaving away in that abandoned shack, or waiting in line for a roller coaster they'd never get to ride, but only once. The mechanical voice screamed and then gargled water before falling silent. I laughed with glee as the tentacles twisted and convulsed, as water sprayed from its seams and smoke poured out of its chimneys. I laughed until I cried, closing my eyes as the machine drifted away from me, sinking down into space, pulled by an unseen gravitational force, into the black hole it had been spawned out of. And I heard the rattle of a roller coaster, and the voices of innumerable people as they shouted with glee, finally free, and coming back around, the final bend.